I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Right for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She is wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe.
False alarm, I thought that help was here. But it was my own reassurance bouncing round 100,000 times in my own ecosphere. If every time you speak you keep it off the record, consequently you can keep your record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit's ears. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere, where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? Man, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause, now that I can see the cause so clearly. I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me. I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. I will bring them out into the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. Hillary, I'll see you there. Hillary, I'll see you there.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
Welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. Welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats, second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists, and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust, there's just moral justice after that. And I will hunt you through the wasteland if it comes to that. So I can rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I can sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. As long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash. I can feel like a little of the old me burn with the bad and the rest of my past. The old world where we all lived and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Those days are behind us, the virus will kill all that. Your wealth is behind us and kindness is meant for the past. Our leaders would bind us and starve us and call it a fast. A sacrament meant for their God that they garnish in cash. And they feed it the poor by the hundreds, that's all that it asks. Its hunger is legion and people in need are all it will have. So our only chance is to starve it and hope that it turns on them.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands. Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Yo, Topher, what's up? Hi, everybody. It's Indy. It's Tuesday night. It's not see you next Tuesday, but see you this Tuesday. C-U-T-T. Not quite the same as my favorite other word. Shout out to wherever Harps is, my cunt brother. Yeah, so this is Indie News Now Live. Not boats smashing into other boats. What's going on over here? Hey, what is happening with that nonsense? Hey, I don't like that. Boats full screen ticker. No, wrong ticker. That's why. Why is it using this thing? I don't know. All right, we're gonna do this on the fly right now. Indie News Now. Full screen ticker. There it is. Now we're good. There we go. Now our ticker's up. Hi, everybody. This is Indie News Now Live. We're going to cover a bunch of stories. I'm obviously Indy, if you haven't figured that part out. Hi, everybody. And now we're underneath that. We're back. And we got a lot of stuff tonight. Oh, my God. We're going to talk about Food Not Bombs. We're going to bring a Keith McHenry story tonight. Friend of the show, friend of the network. Amazing man, should be sainted potentially, but we'll see. Apparently he's having some issues today with other people. I don't know what's going on, but we're going to do our regular Fuck Israel segment because we do that every Tuesday night and every week, apparently, because we've been doing a Fuck Israel segment all year long, and now we are doing a 12 days of Fuck Israel. So I'm squeezing in a live stream every day. We've already done 3 days of it. Today was day 3. And we're going to try to squeeze in a day each day so that we'll get in each a month for a month of the year and grab the segments where we did having to do with Israel-Palestine just from this show alone. All right, showing all the horrors and the awful crap that was happening. And once in a while, a positive story, but overwhelmingly, it's just the horrors that are being inflicted intentionally by Israel and supported by everybody else in the world, and nobody's stopping it. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about what some of the other things. Americans killed in Syria, and apparently we're not going to do anything about that. Venezuelans that were going to coup Maduro, but ended up in an ICE detention facility. We're going to learn all about that, as well as talk about what's happening to Mintpress News, talk about what's happening to David Rovics. His entire YouTube channel was eliminated. And then I've got some lightning round, and we can get out of here after the GoFundMes. So buckle up. We're going to be here for a little bit. Before we get started, I showed that slide before, but here we go again. These are all the incredible people that have supported this network over the last 4+ years already. And I was just looking at just the people who have supported just in the last quarter, between being subscribed monthly or annually or putting some tip in through Ko-fi or Cash App or one of those ways at in the bottom of the corner, bottom of the screen there, it's remarkable. I really appreciate it, and everybody at INN does. We love you so much. We thank you for supporting the media that you want to see, supporting user-funded independent media that's ad-free, and we don't take any money except from what you guys give us right here. So the ways to do that are Cash App. You go $ Indie News Network. We haven't gotten one there in a bit. ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Everybody likes to give there. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. I added back in Patreon.com/Indie News Network. We've got 10 paid subscribers over at Patreon. Thank you to everybody over there. I'm sorry to ignore you over there. I did not intentionally mean to do that. Then we've got IndieNewsNow.com. That's our website. You can actually go there, keep the media free, and there's a link there that will tip us through Stripe. And then over at Substack, where we're live, and again, there's that other ticker. What the heck is going on over there? Not good. Substacks, INNnewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com. Yeah, I did make a new thing and make some changes, so that's probably what's going on here, why the ticker wasn't working right. But we're going to fix that right now. Indie News Now live ticker. And go. Okay. That's now fixed on the support slide. All right, and we go back to here. Hi, everybody. Now we're back. And again, we're live over on Substack, and thankfully I can actually put the chats up, and anyone that shows up in the stream I can showcase there. So if you show up, yes, 12 Days of Fuck Israel. That's right, Go Start. And we're streaming that out to all the different platforms whenever we can. We're not going to interrupt an INN live stream, but we're going to work around it. So today, because we had tonight's stream, I ran it from 5 to 8:30 Eastern. Tomorrow night, INN News will be live at 9, so we'll probably run it from like 6 to 8:30-ish, just before they get started, and have a nice little Fuck Israel lead in there. All right. So I have got an interesting story, an article written by, again, friend of the show, friend of the network, Keith McHenry, who is the co-founder of Food Not Bombs. Let me fix one other thing here I just noticed. So let me take those off. And let's go back here. Much better. Thank you. All right. Keith McHenry writes over at Substack. I didn't even know that he did that. He has a blog over at WordPress called The Anarchist Cook. And now he is also publishing at Substack at keithmchenry.substack.com. His publication is, of course, Anarchist Cook. Basically continuing the publication over there. We've read a couple of articles of his in the past. He is sounding the alarm bells here. The current state of repression is what he's talking about. So what is he talking about? Well, I'm going to blow this up, help you see it a little bit better. Food Not Bombs has a 45-year history of defending human and animal rights. Volunteers have provided support for indigenous struggles, class conflicts, and in defense of the environment. We stand for the rights of those without a roof to a safe place to sleep, free of police disruption and violence. Of course, we aren't going to let governments interfere with the sharing of meals and literature. We always defend the basic human right to share meals without government permission. Bless him. When the Pensacola, Florida police arrested Food Not Bombs volunteer Mike Kimbrell for sharing meals after dark in Martin Luther King Jr. Park the day after Thanksgiving this year, Food Not Bombs refused efforts by the city to issue them a permit. Mike and other Food Not Bombs volunteers have been sharing meals every Friday at 6 p.m. in Pensacola for 14 years, daylight savings time or not. Pensacola Mayor D.C. Reeves and his police department don't seem to understand that they have no say in how people help one another. That's the most basic of freedoms. People don't ever need permission from the government to share the gift of a warm meal. Food Not Bombs agreed during the 1992 and 1995 World Gatherings that we would never request or accept a permit to share food with the hungry after the San Francisco authorities used that process to try and stop our meals. If they believe that they can give you permission, they also believe they can take it away, as George Carlin famously once said. There's Melbourne food not bombs. Melbourne food not bombs on the Atlantic coast of Florida successfully pushed back against a local ordinance designed to drive the group from site. Quote, "We're not here to negotiate with you," one volunteer tells City Council. She reminds the council members that the city of Fort Lauderdale was ordered to pay $750,000 to the attorneys that represented Food Not Bombs after the federal courts ruled that it was our First Amendment right to share meals without a permit. Another threat is brewing against anti-fascists, anarchists, and groups like Food Not Bombs that organize using anarchist-influenced, non-hierarchical principles. A July 4th fireworks protest outside an ICE detention center, I believe this was in Houston, inspired the July 22nd story on the Dallas-Fort Worth NPR station. I'm sorry, it was Dallas. KERA, quote, "shooting at the Alvarado ICE facility. Other attacks? The new normal?" KERA reporter Caroline Love says, quote, "Era Yusuf describes herself as being close friends with many of the defendants, including Benjamin Song, who she said prefers to be called Suzuka. Song, who was recently arrested, is accused of purchasing 4 guns found in connection with the shooting, according to court records. Yusuf met them through the protests and local activism, including the group Food Not Bombs, a nonprofit organization that distributes food that would otherwise be discarded to people experiencing homelessness. Okay. So effectively, they're now trying to lump Food Not Bombs in with this Dallas shooting. Yusuf, who moved to another state recently, said she wasn't involved with the demonstration at the detention center or any of the planning. She said her friends are not violent. Quote, "These aren't dangerous people. They want to help innocent folks that are being kept prisoner." The report also notes that court records don't identify who fired the shots, suggesting that the shooter may well be working with law enforcement. Nobody knows. The Alvarado ICE facility shooting was highlighted by Trump and his cabinet at his October 8th White House Antifa roundtable. Trump stated that, quote, "In July, approximately a dozen Antifa-aligned militants stormed the ICE facility in Texas, then lured officers out of the building before firing dozens of rounds of police. They were crazy, frankly, shooting one Texas officer in the neck." Huh. Someone else got shot in the neck not long after that, interestingly enough. During that same Antifa roundtable, Jonathan Cho, who is a reporter for Turning Point USA's newsroom Frontlines, interesting that the Turning Point guy asked the question about somebody who was shot in the neck. Anyway, claimed that political extremism on the ideological left, yeah, that's where the extremism is, intersects with the homeless drug crisis. They're trying to manufacture this. Don't look at Israel, guys. Just don't look at anyone who's actually been shooting people in the neck with sniper rifles. As evidence, he shared a recent report from the Discovery Institute, which I'm sure is, we'll find out, a Seattle-based think tank best known for promoting the intelligent design theory that God made everything in 7 days to refute the theory of evolution. Strict creationism. Okay, so fairy tale land. Quote, "In many cases, the homeless industrial complex is running cover for Antifa, and Antifa is benefiting from American tax dollars, and they're essentially being used as the muscle." Holy shit. This is unbelievable. What about the IDF soldiers that were found to be working with ICE, over 100 in Chicago? Nah. Antifa. Don't look at Israel, whatever you do. He then pointed to Stop the Sweeps, a franchise-like community-coordinated campaign that aims to prevent state violence against encampments, writes Ellie Quinlan Hotailing in that October 8th story in The New Republic. For those who don't know, The New Republic is the most shit liberal publication maybe in the world. I mean, their goal is to be read on Air Force One when the president is a Democrat. That's all they want. They want to appeal to liberal haven. That's it. So that's what she's talking about. All right. Where again, they want to criminalize this guy. The Stop the Sweeps protests in Santa Cruz have been focused against the local homeless shelter housing matters and their coordination with the city to clear the streets of the homeless around their shelter. Okay. So then there's this clown. Everybody knows that this guy is a plant and likely a Fed. All right. He was on a former Antifa member. Sure, Jan. Here's Keith again after quoting this article. The suggestion that food not bombs could be a national security threat continued. On October 3rd, Fox News' Jesse Waters aired, quote, Antifa whistleblower breaks silence, warns of violence. Interviewing an actor, he calls Eric about how he got involved with Antifa. Waters starts by explaining that Eric had to disguise himself to protect his life. He goes on asking, how did you get roped into this whole Antifa thing? And fake Eric responds, well, it started when I was young. I got in through working with different groups like the ARA, Cop Watch, Food Not Bombs, and the punk rock movement. Again, trying to link Food Not Bombs in with Antifa and all these other things. All they do is feed people. They're nonpartisan and they're apolitical. And they've got, I mean, how many times did they get served citations in Houston for feeding the public and for feeding the homeless? I mean, it was like every day for over a year. It was a joke. The pretend former Antifa Eric also refers to the World Trade Organization protests in Seattle and claims that he had a copy of the anarchist cookbook. Again, watch the one-on-one interview that I did with Keith McHenry last August. He talks a little bit about the anarchist cookbook and how he wrote the second edition of it, which is one of the things that he's famous for. He also was arrested at the World Trade Organization protests in Seattle in 1999. On September 25th, 2025, Trump issued National Security Presidential Memorandum, NSPM 7, Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence Presidential National Security Memorandum. It includes, quote, and this is unbelievable, the language, as described in the order of September 22nd, designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. The groups and entities that perpetuate this extremism have created a movement that embraces and elevates violence to achieve policy outcomes, including justifying additional assassinations. For example, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin engraved the bullets used in the murder with so-called anti-fascist rhetoric. If you're a moron and actually believe that A, he was a shooter, B, he engraved those bullets, and B, those were anywhere close to the bullets that actually shot this guy in the neck, and that his head didn't explode from getting hit in the neck with a 30-06. Okay. So many holes in that story. Oh, my God. One of these days, I'll take on the entire thing, but it's such a distraction, and it doesn't really matter. What matters now is who's taken over Turning Point and what's happened to it. The fact that the lean that apparently he was having toward potentially questioning what was happening is now long gone, and Turning Point is now doing a massive Zionist lean in, and they're doing a conference later this month that has a ton of Zionists there. It's just a massive pro-Israel deal. Anyway, Attorney General Pam Bondi, not Bondi, but Bondi, ordered the FBI on, that's weird too, on December 4th, 2025, to compile a list of groups or entities engaging in acts that may constitute domestic terrorism. Now, according to the Justice Department memo. Now, under number 7, disseminating intelligence on extremist groups. This is where we start to get worried. Within 60 days of the issuance of this guidance, the FBI, in coordination with its partners on the JTTFs, shall disseminate an intelligence bulletin on Antifa and Antifa-aligned anarchist violent extremist groups. Again, they don't exist. They're non-structured to begin with. You can't name any one member of Antifa, period. You can't. Because who are they? They had them before Congress and said, can you name one of them? Can you name how they're organized? Can you name anything about? Nope. They couldn't. Well, we're still gathering that information is all they were told. It was a clown show at Congress. All right. I think that might even be in here. All right. The bulletin should describe the relevant organization structures, funding sources, and tactics so that law enforcement partners can effectively investigate and policymakers can effectively understand the nature and the gravity of the threat posed by these extremist groups, right? Okay, if they're so extremist, where's the dossier? It's been more than 60 days, right? That was September. Why isn't this? Murder. Sorry. All right. Sorry. I just read that word. Lost my place. My headphones turned off. Again, within 60 days of the issuance of this guidance, and it was September 25th. So that should have been by November 25th. They should have put out a guidance. It might be helpful to learn that when the FBI and JTTF observed the August 22nd, 1988 arrests of 24 Food Not Bombs volunteers at Golden Gate Park, they sent a memo to the San Francisco FBI field office claiming we were a credible national security threat. That, for what? That November, during the Thanksgiving holiday, National Guard units across the country held domestic terrorism workshops featuring Food Not Bombs as one of America's most hardcore terrorist groups. Again, they've never done anything but feed the homeless. In April 2009, the U.S. State Department gave a lecture asking who's more dangerous, Al-Qaeda or the people sharing vegan meals in the parks. In conclusion, they believe that the people sharing vegan meals were more dangerous because they were influencing the American public, pubic, that's funny, to support diverting military spending to education, healthcare, and other social services, reducing, according to them, the country's ability to fight groups like Al-Qaeda. Dude, that sounds like Lindsey Graham wrote that entire sentence right there. Straight with the word pubic in it, too. Lindsay, Miss Lindsay. While several Food Not Bombs volunteers have been arrested, framed, or entrapped by FBI terrorism charges in plots invented by the agency, it's not slowed the growth of our movement. Not at all. Each of these cases was painful for the families and friends of those targeted, but if anything, it's encouraged more people to participate. We are maybe entering a time of transition where those of us who have no attachment to the current political and economic system can actually thrive. I don't know if I agree with that, but I hope so. In crisis like this, and here's his explanation, people tend to step up and help one another. The collapse frees us to appreciate the value of community and compassion over the cold, techno-feudal digital dystopia during the dying days of this cruel U.S. empire. And I did want to bring that, but I don't see it here. Yeah, here is this. The homeless industrial complex is truly laughable. No, it's not at all. It's laughable in that it doesn't accomplish anything, but it's just a big sinkhole for $20-30 billion a year to not feed or house nearly enough people. All right. And that is, again, Keith McHenry. Give him a follow, Keith_McHenry on Twitter. Follow him at keithmchenry.substack.com. Follow him over there. He's also over on Facebook, and he shares a ton of Food Not Bomb stuff. I love following Keith on. He's a great follow on Facebook. So give him a shout. Hi to everybody who's here. Again, thanks to everyone who's here. I hope everybody's staying warm and dry wherever you are. Food Not Bongs. Yeah, no, I'm not down with that because I love food and bongs. Hey, don't take away my bong, motherfuckers. I don't do that. No, don't do that. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm glad everybody's here. Salute to Neilio Nostrum, who's here. Good to see you, sir. Driving me Macy, I see. There's Sean the Accord Lord. What's up, OMB? Yeah, he's been filming some pretty crazy stuff over at his place and sending it to me. Yeah, fentanyl's a weapon of mass destruction. Of course it is. So apparently Trump is going to give some kind of an address tomorrow. We'll figure out. I think he's going to announce that we're going to be attacking Venezuela, and here's his justification for further war. Great, just what we need. Another war, because we're not doing enough of those. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that are on that board. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. We added Patreon.com/Indie News Network back into the mix. IndieNewsNow.com. You can go and keep the media free. There's a section over there to do a Stripe tip. And then there's Substack over at INNNewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com, where you can subscribe on a monthly or annual basis. Everything that we do, remember, is free to all. We work on a value for value system here. All the clips, all the articles, all the live streams, everything, all the Fuck Israel segments, everything you see here is free to all. So we rely on your support, your funding solely. We don't take sponsors. We don't take ad money. And I would guess that if there were a sponsor that aligned that made sense, like a bong sponsorship, for example, or if Carta wanted to hook me up with a rig for, telling people to buy a Focus V Sport, or I wouldn't mind, what is that promo code India checkout? Like that's what Reef likes to say all the time during boats. So yeah, we're up to our Fuck Israel segment, speaking of which. So we're going to cover another one this week. Again, if you have not been paying attention or you haven't known, I decided starting Sunday to do the 12 days of Fuck Israel. And I figured how better to do that than to just break it up month by month by month by month. So we started with January. It was almost a 4-hour long stream. February was yesterday, and that was almost 3 hours or 3.5. And then today was March, and that was, again, about 3 hours and change. Tomorrow we'll be doing April, and so on and so forth until we run through the end of the year. And we'll try to squeeze these in every day. So this segment will end up in the December segment, which will be run, I think, on Christmas Day. So, fuck Israel. Hi, everybody. Merry Christmas to all who are celebrating if you're here that day. But I wanted to cover some of these stories that don't necessarily make it through. There was a lot of stuff on Twitter this week about tents flooding again and about extreme torrential downpouring rain and it being extreme cold and there being nowhere to go and no shelter for everyone. But I think a lot of people are still taking their eye off the ball on the West Bank, and that's something that I've had my eye on closely for a while, and I will continue to. And I wanted to bring this one that I did not really see anybody else talking about, which is from Mondo Weiss, talking about an ancient Palestinian town that is more than 5,000 years old may soon no longer exist because Israel, of course, plans on stealing it. Palestinian town of Safiya in the northern West Bank. Israel announced that it plans to seize the village and its archaeological sites because, of course they do. Fuck Israel. Why wouldn't they? Israel's creeping annexation of an ancient West Bank village and its archaeological site stands to upend the lives of its Palestinian inhabitants and dispossess them of their lands. Again, the plan the entire time. Israeli settlers and the Israeli army have stepped up efforts to make life unbearable for Palestinians, according to the town's residents, in order to compel them to leave. Many of them face expulsion as their homes fall within the area slated for seizure. Villagers, activists, politicians from Safiya, northwest of Nablus, have for years warned the international community of Israel's plans to erase them and the 5,000 years of Palestinian history contained within the town's archaeological ruins. Their warnings have fallen on deaf ears. Figures. On November 12th, the Israeli government issued an order outlining plans to expropriate 450 acres of land from ancient Safiya and the village's entire archaeological park, which includes homes and businesses. Israel's seizure of the lands of Safiya and the nearby village of Burqa will form part of a plan to create a national park for Israeli settlers on one of the most significant Palestinian historical sites in the West Bank out of 6,000 others. Wow, this is so disgusting. The village's archaeological park, because Israel, they care so much about the history of mankind, right? The archaeological park, which is being considered for a UNESCO World Heritage status, which I'm sure Israel would never allow or honor even if it was awarded, contains relics and artifacts spanning the Bronze Age from before 3000 BC to the Ottoman period. Israel doesn't give a fuck. They'll just blow them up. Maybe they'll seize them and then blow it up. Palestinian residents of Safiya say that the ruins bear witness to Palestine's centuries of interactions with conquering empires, while revealing Palestine's impact on those empires in return. The archaeological park itself falls under full Israeli military control as part of Area C, but most of the village is part of Area B, which falls under joint Israeli-Palestinian jurisdiction according to the demarcations of the 93 Oslo Accords. How long before they just decide that they're no longer going to honor any of those anymore? What is most notable about the latest seizure order is that it encroaches upon land and properties in Area B and stands to change residents' lives forever, particularly if soldiers are permanently stationed inside the village or archaeological park, and if settler visits become more regular. In May of 2023, in a precursor to the national park plans, the Israeli government approved a 30 million shekel, which is more than $8 million, scheme to restore Safiya's archaeological park and establish a tourism center, new access roads, and expand their own military presence. So basically, they're going to steal it and use it as a tourist site. The Israeli civil administration has also submitted orders for new roads to connect the surrounding settlements. Of course, that will further cut off the people who live there, or they'll just dispossess them. Nihad Abadi, a 65-year-old farmer and father of 6 in Safiya, owns a farm and hundreds of precious olive trees that have been passed down through generations. As Israel's long-threatened annexation of the northern West Bank village moves a step closer, Abadi and his family face losing all of it. Why? If they want to kill us in our own home, let them come and do it. I won't just leave my house. I built it with my own hands, stone by stone. If I lose this place, there's nowhere else for my family to go. Fear is always here now in Safiya, but you have to live with it. You can't let it take over. Maps included in Israel's order showed the seized area covers hundreds of private plots containing 5,700 olive trees, the lifeblood of Safiya's economy, according to the municipality. So they'll steal that land. My guess is they'll bulldoze the trees just out of spite. They've been doing that all winter long that we've seen. A body spoke to Mondo Weiss from his increasingly dilapidated family home, which he's been unable to renovate or improve due to restrictions from Israeli authorities. Equal rights, right? Equal rights. They treat Palestinians equally, right? It falls just within the boundaries of the land Israel, of course, plans to seize, an area equivalent to about 275 football fields. That's big. That is a big area. The West Bank isn't that big. What is left of Abadi's land, which once generated him a small fortune by Safiya's standards, is loomed over by the illegal Israeli settlement of Shavei Shomron. Abadi tells Mondo Weiss that his father remains in his late grandfather's home, marooned on the other side of the highway from his son and nestled beneath the imposing militarized perimeter of the settlement. This is what I mean by cutting off the territory. Marooned, meaning that he can't get to his kids. As for himself, he's now unable to farm the 3,000 square meter plot that he owns and the 75 acres of land that he was leasing. Why? Because of settler attacks, rising costs, and the presence of the Israeli military for his turn in fortunes. They just rob him. He estimates that he's lost more than over $90,000 in just the past 3 years. They didn't put any effort into this land, he said. We and our ancestors worked it. We poured our sweat into this land. I'm more connected to it than anyone else. I was born and raised on it. Again, settlers claiming that this was theirs from 3,000 years ago. No, it's not theirs or even their ancestors, because you won't even take a fucking DNA test to prove, but these guys would. Israel confiscated much of my family's lands, annexing it to the settlement. But even so, we didn't leave. Many of Abadi's neighbors on the northwestern outskirts of the village are also facing displacement, but are too afraid to discuss their situation for fear of Israeli reprisal. I don't blame them. Safiya residents had been afforded just 14 days to object to the plans through the Israeli legal system. Yeah, like they're going to expedite this for a Palestinian village. Like hundreds of other villagers, Abadi rushed to submit documents to local authorities that prove his ownership of his home and land in an attempt to block the seizures, but of course, they don't give a fuck, and they don't want anyone to see those documents. Here's another one. Lifelong Safiya resident and activist Ahmad Kayed, 60, said that the village was in a state of emergency, with residents more afraid than ever of displacement and intensifying military police. Local officials, including Safiya Mayor Muhammad Azim, have condemned the international community for ignoring their continual pleas for support. Mayor Azim conceded the future for the village is dark and bleak, and previously warned rivers of blood would run through the streets if Israel's plans become a reality. Israel's unprecedented land seizure comes as a forced displacement in rural areas and refugee camps runs rampant, and settler violence reaches record levels. And there's a whole Mondo Weiss article about that from October. Okay, here's another one. Israeli anti-settlement heritage organization Emek Shavei said Safiya would become the fifth historical site in the West Bank to be expropriated since 1967. Moreover, the seizure would be the largest of any archaeologically significant area in the state's history. we shouldn't even be recognizing it as a state at this point. Israel. It's not a state. It's a terrorist entity that keeps stealing land from the people that had it beforehand. Because in England gifted it. It's the most insane shit ever. Celebrating the move, an Israeli minister of heritage, all these lunatic rabid Zionists, Amichai Eliyahu, himself an illegal settler, said that the flag of an invented people will be removed from Safiya, and the flag of the Jewish people will be raised in its place. Every accusation is a confession. The only invented flag is the Israeli flag. Local municipality figures, the Palestinian Minister for Tourism and Antiquities, Hani Al-Hayek, and representatives from Emek Shaveh have met in Safiya several times over the last month to work on a public information campaign and a last-ditch effort for UNESCO World Heritage recognition and international support. Futile. Valiant, but likely to be futile, unfortunately. At the first meeting on November 22nd, it was confirmed that the order will also entail the takeover of 2 cultural heritage gift shops, a factory, and 550 agricultural plots. Why? And how are they compensating the people that they're stealing this from? Since 2020, the village has lost about 700 olive trees and 750 apricot trees due to the settler damage and Israeli land seizures. Fuck Israel. Land thieves, not compensating, even if they would accept any compensation. Safiya is now surrounded by checkpoints. The illegal Israeli settlements of Shaveh Shomron and Homesh, as well as dozens of official settler encampments obstructing access to vast swaths of Palestinian land. They want to cut off their access and make these parcels smaller and smaller and cut off communication between the villages even. Hayed said that the village has been under siege since Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin war criminal Netanyahu's far-right ultra-nationalist coalition rose to power in 2022. About 40 families have left Safiya after military invasions have become incessant. I don't blame them. Again, where do you go? It's not like they've got hotel rooms down the street. It's like an earthquake or a bomb has hit us, he said after the order was submitted. We've never been so worried for the future of our village, and we feel alone. No one has listened to us. God, this sounds awfully familiar. He says that the Israeli army intends to make life unbearable for residents until they either leave Safiya or are forced out. This is their plan. They starve them. They shoot at them. They raid their houses. They start blowing up the houses. And everybody left gets killed or starts mass being displaced, kicked out door to door, and kicked down a road. We've seen those exiles before. Those Nakbas. Excavations at the site. Again, here we go. Settler politicians and ultra-nationalist ministers visited and announced their intentions to create Samaria National Park in May earlier this year. Just as another big fuck you to the Palestinians. Excavations at the site began soon after, despite being condemned as illegal by the Palestinian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities and a host of civil society bodies. They don't give a fuck. Defaced by Israeli settlers. That's the western wall of Safiya's archaeological site, defaced by Israeli settlers with a Star of David. Figures on the Israeli far right refer to Safiya as Samaria or Shomron in Hebrew and claim it was the capital of the biblical kingdom of Israel nearly 3 millennia ago. But most historians believe the northern kingdom lasted for under 200 years, while Palestinian culture has interacted with ruling empires from the Bronze Age through to the Ottoman period. Heritage Minister Eliyahu stated on social media that Safiya the capital of the ancient kingdom of Israel has been neglected. The minister accused the Palestinian Authority of paving over Israeli history, fuck them, and dumping waste on Jewish relics. Again, Zionist, not Jewish, adding that Jews will no longer be expelled from their historic homeland. Okay, you pushed them there. You realize that. That was all their land. It wasn't their... Wow. Any American that goes along with this, I hope, is just prepared to give up their home to a Native American, because you're literally advocating for the same exact thing. Eliyahu's office told the media in May that there is no evidence of any Palestinian history in the village's archaeological park. That is such bullshit. It's just Hasbara. 5,000 years of history. No evidence. They just make shit up. Yet the Ottoman architecture, Hellenistic Western Wall, the ruins of a Byzantine basilica, a Roman forum and amphitheater, the remains of the Temple of Augustus tell a different story. The Crusader-era church of St. John, rebuilt into a mosque, is believed to be the site of the tomb of John the Baptist, known in the Quran as the prophet Yahya, and has been a pilgrimage site for centuries. Sebastian is one of 63 sites in the West Bank that have been designated by the war criminal as an Israeli heritage site. Again, just making shit up. There is no such thing. World Heritage Sites is. For years, the Israeli military has surveilled the site and forcibly blocked the Palestinian Authority and the municipality from carrying out any excavations, cleaning, and restoration work. I wonder why. Maybe they would actually find even more Palestinian artifacts that Israel certainly doesn't want to find, because then it would debunk this whole Israeli artifact nonsense. Ghazal accuses Israel of perpetrating a crime against history, calling for support from historians, universities, and academics around the world before it's too late. I think it already is. The confiscation order is becoming of a nightmare we had long feared. Our village has witnessed the rise and fall of many civilizations, but this does not give anyone the right to claim ownership except for the rightful landowners who have lived on this land for generations. What is happening is the illegal theft of knowledge and heritage, and the erasure of people's existence and history. Each of the civilizations that have passed through the village left its mark, which collectively forms the historical fabric of Palestine. Let us act now, not just to protect the village, but to defend a living archaeological site whose people still have access to it, enjoy its presence, and live alongside it. I don't know how much they're visiting it, honestly, right now, but it's theirs. It belongs to them. It does not belong to Israel, whether they believe it or not. Ghazal says that less than 10% of the archaeological park had been properly excavated, and the people of Safiya have been denied the chance to unearth more of their own collective heritage. The Israeli government also issued an order last July to build a military outpost at the scenic summit of Safiya's archaeological park. Construction has not yet begun, nor should it ever. In addition, the government has outlined plans to build a defense station at the historic Masudia station, part of the Ottoman Hejaz Railway, less than 2 miles away from the village. Again, they're just going to raise the whole thing and rebuild it however they want. Yossi Dagan, chairman of the Shomron Medical Council that governs 35 illegal West Bank settlements, visited the site like a parasite with other settlers and construction vehicles in late November to celebrate the beginning of renovation works. This week, a metal gate's been constructed by the military at the entrance to the station. The train is rolling. Terrible. Again, there we go. I said something about a Nakba, Sebastian's second Nakba. Since October 7, 2023, Israeli military violence in the West Bank and the village of Safiya has intensified. There have been at least 25 gunshot injuries in the village. And I'm guessing that it wasn't due to Palestinian on Palestinian violence. Many involving children. While over 15 village residents have been arrested, 7 of whom are still detained because Israel loves to illegally detain children in torture prisons. Like a 14-year-old, Ahmad Jazar, he was shot dead by Israeli soldiers in June last year. And Fauzi Makalfe, 19, was killed a year before. Teenager Nawal Sholi and 27-year-old Ayman Shaer were both disabled after being shot in the thigh by soldiers exploding bullets. Again, not Palestinian on Palestinian violence, but the IDF targeting and injuring and maiming and permanently disabling Palestinians. Don't sugarcoat it. Israel's repression has become so severe that even peaceful protests have become too dangerous, Mayor Azim told Mondoweiss, expressing fears over losing many more village residents. I don't blame them. Go start. Israel has killed over 380,000 infants under 5. Allegedly, but sure, 680,000 dead is the latest number. Wombat, good to see you. We're fully aware of the military's brutality and violence and how it kills anyone who stands in the deep sense of pride and the strong will of the people of Safiya to protect and preserve their cultural and historical heritage and to defend their property. Traders told Mondoweiss they fear displacement and have lost over 3/4 of their business as tourism plummeted since October 7th. I didn't even know there was tourism in the West Bank, but I guess many owners have already moved their restaurants and stores to other locations in the village to avoid reprisals from the military, until the military just takes that too. An average of 150,000 international tourists, Christian pilgrims, and Palestinians from across the West Bank would visit Safiya annually before October 7th. See that? Now there are fewer than 500 guests per month, the municipality says. And my guess is that's also because Israel doesn't allow them in. Again, reminding people that Israel's excavations have killed olive trees that are more than 1,000 years old. Why? Out of spite. While speaking with Mondoweiss, Kayed said he doesn't want to imagine life without the views from the hillsides of the archaeological park, the most beautiful place to admire the sunset in Palestine. Kayed reminisces about planting olive trees with his late mother while taking phone calls from international journalists and national ambassadors. Some of the trees his family and other villagers had nurtured had been uprooted by recent Israeli excavations or burned by settlers. These trees are part of our life, part of our soul. But we can't even reach our land now. We can't feed ourselves. Now Kayed believes that the village faces a second Nakba, and he's right. He gestures towards a particularly charred and decaying tree, with Safiya's dramatic Roman-era western wall behind it, whose stones were defaced by Israeli settler graffiti depicting Stars of David. Ours is the story of these trees, he said. They want us to die as these trees have. Then he points to a tree stump spouting fresh shoots, but we will learn from them and we will grow again. Oh man. And again, that picture of the tree burned out with the defaced Roman wall. Why? Just because they can, just because. Fuck Israel. Next, I just wanted to call attention to the fact that it has now been 354 days since Israel abducted Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. Free Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. Right? There's a whole thing about the Safiya project, talking about what's going on and how much it's costing right now a family to be able to buy shelter, $250 to $500 for a tent, $200 to $260 for tarps, $55 to $60 for a blanket. Yeah. But what's more interesting is that now American soldiers are being killed in Syria. And of course, we know that that's really just because of Israel. So fuck Israel for this, because now Americans are being murdered. This is Jason Ditz over at Indie Media Award winner Anti-War. Okay. 2 U.S. soldiers and 1 civilian killed in an attack on Syria's Palmyra. The joint patrol targeted by a lone gunman. Several U.S. and Syrian personnel were also wounded. So what happened here? Yeah, update. Here's more details on the attack and the perpetrator. But before we get to that, an apparently insider attack in the ancient Syrian city of Palmyra has left a number of U.S. casualties after an apparent ISIS infiltrator to the local security forces attacked a joint U.S.-Syrian patrol that was conducting a field tour of the area. Unbelievable. The gunman opened fire on the patrol and killed two U.S. soldiers and 1 U.S. civilian. 3 additional U.S. soldiers and 2 Syrian troops were also reported wounded in the incident. The gunman, who has not yet been publicly identified, at least as of this article, was reportedly killed in the exchange. The attacker has been widely reported as a member of local security forces without detail, though the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights initially reported him as a member of the security forces. Subsequent Reuters reports also cited officials stating that he was a security force member, but not a high-ranking one. I don't believe Reuters for a second. The joint delegation fled to the U.S. base in Al-Tanf along the southern Syrian border and took the wounded with them for treatment there. In the course of the movement, the main Syrian highway connecting the capital Damascus to the eastern Deir ez-Zor governorate was blocked to all traffic, and the area was placed under high alert. That seems a little concerning. A second attack by ISIS was reported further east in the town of Al-Taqihi. Now, wait a minute. Isn't Al-Jalani or whatever, Al-Shara, ISIS, ex-ISIS? So are his guys doing this? 1 ISIS gunman was killed there, and the commander and 1 of his escorts were reported wounded. So, again, ISIS cell attempted to assassinate a commander of the Kurdish SDF. I thought the Kurds were on our side. I thought ISIS is kind of on our side. Awfully confusing. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey Tom Barrack, who also was in the Epstein files and very close with Epstein, by the way, was quoted as condemning the cowardly terrorist attack, quote unquote, and reaffirmed the U.S. partnership with the Islamist Syrian government to continue to fight terrorism in the country. Trump vowed a very serious retaliation, which they announced today isn't going to really be a very serious retaliation. Don't worry about it, bro. We got it. ISIS has long sought to reassert itself after losing materially all the territory that it once held in both Syria and Iraq. The group retains capability to operate in eastern Syria, as is evidence today, continue to try to conduct high-profile attacks when the opportunity presents itself. Because why not? Historically, U.S.-backed Kurdish forces have been on the front lines against ISIS in that part of Syria. Again, we back Kurds, and we back... Notice, ISIS doesn't attack any Muslim countries. Okay. Or they don't attack Israel, more like, and any ones that are friendly to Israel. Weird. But U.S. efforts to get the SDF to integrate outright into the Syrian military have complicated matters and the sometimes tense relationship on the ground between the Syrian army and the Kurds may be giving ISIS more leeway to operate in that region. ISIS is the Syrian army, I thought. I would need to talk with Vanessa Beeley and or Eva Bartlett to understand a little bit more about the dynamic there, and I would highly recommend following both of them. All right, and then I've got one other thing here when it comes to Fuck Israel this week from the Palestine Chronicle, Indie Media Award honoree Robert Inlakesh. Okay, why Israel is pushing for regime change in Venezuela through Washington? Weird. But remember that Maduro is one of the most outspoken critics of Israel. So, one of Washington's pro-Israel think tanks, like the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, are pumping out articles groveling over the prospect of controlling the nation's oil. Of course they are. But not only is the pro-regime Venezuelan opposition allied with the Israeli Likud party, no surprise, but toppling the government in Caracas directly serves Israel's regional agenda. How? This is why pro-Israeli commentators are adamant that the U.S. military intervene and put American lives on the line. While parallels are beginning to be drawn between the buildup to the Iraq War and the Trump administration's regime change propaganda against Venezuela, one key similarity is being conveniently left out of the picture. Do tell, Robert. Israeli war criminal Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is infamous for cheerleading the U.S.'s illegal invasion of Iraq in 2003, a war which Israel refused to fight in itself, of course, but nonetheless lobbied for and encouraged through its allied neoconservative think tanks in D.C. Again, history repeating itself here again, despite the White House recently releasing a new 33-page national security strategy document in which the U.S. declared that it's no longer seeking to engage in nation-building wars and that the days of regime change operations to export American values are over. God, I wish. The current administration is threatening just that against Venezuela. It is additionally aiming to achieve this outcome in Gaza through its UNSC-approved Gaza quote-unquote ceasefire plan, even though they haven't ceased fire like for a day, and they keep murdering Palestinians. The parallels to the buildup to the Iraq War couldn't be any starker. Pro-Trump conservative commentators are currently salivating at the prospect of getting their hands on that Venezuelan oil. They want to tap that oil, like I said last week. In addition to this, the false charge that Venezuela is somehow responsible for the U.S.'s fentanyl crisis has led to labeling the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro's government, as a narco-terrorist regime, which is, again, insane. Because the fentanyl is coming from Mexico, but it's also coming from Colombia and Peru and Argentina. However, and also from here, if you listen to what Trump administration officials are using as a justification for their goal of toppling Maduro, they consistently accuse Caracas of allying with Hamas and Hezbollah. Some pro-Israeli commentators even claim that Hezbollah and Hamas could be preparing attacks on the U.S. homeland. Not only an audacious and illogical charge, but one with not a shred of evidence to back it up. Why would they need evidence? Trust me, bro. False flag. It's coming. 9/11 style attack. Isn't that what Laura Looney said? These are also not the enemies of the U.S., but instead the enemies of Israel, making it more suspicious as to why there's such a hyper-focus on this issue. For example, Venezuelan opposition leader, clown show Maria Corina Machado, who also was the Nobel Peace Prize Award honoree, recently spoke at a conference in Oslo and was asked to address the issue of U.S. intervention in her country. And her response was to declare that her country had already been invaded. Maduro was democratically elected twice. We have the Iranian agents. We have the terrorist groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, operating freely in accordance with the regime, Machado claimed, in order to justify the invasion of her nation. Absolutely pulled it right out of her ass. And right out of CIA talking points. The U.S. also recently released footage of its illegal theft of a Venezuelan oil tanker, justifying this move by claiming it was used to transfer Iranian oil. It's of note that Tehran's relationship with Caracas is frequently cited as if it represents a threat to the United States. Moves like the recent tanker seizure represent a step that is an aggression toward Iran by proxy. So yes, if the oil is Iranian, and I don't think that anybody proved that it was in this case, that certainly is an escalation with Iran. Donald Trump, whose long-desired Nobel Peace Prize was stolen away by the pro-war Venezuelan opposition leader he backed to overthrow Maduro, attempts to pride himself on the idea that he's a broker of peace and opposed to regime change wars. Wait, what? Yet between March and May, he launched a failed war on Yemen, assassinating all their heads of state there, followed directly by striking Iran in June, both acts committed solely for the sake of Israel. Fuck Israel. This is odd. They must have blackmail material on him. Like bad. Like not what, the Putin stuff. Obviously, again, it's projection. Washington's pro-Israel think tanks, like the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, are pumping out articles groveling over the prospect of controlling the nation's oil, but also ensuring that the new Venezuela is led by a U.S. puppet regime who will cut ties with Israel's enemies. In a new article written by the FDD's senior Iran and financial economics advisor, Saeed Ghassaminejad, it spells out in a tone of certainty that a new regime in Caracas would sever ties with Iran. Tehran uses Venezuela as a base for expanding its jihadi influence in America's backyard. Wait a minute. Venezuela is now America's backyard? A U.S.-aligned Caracas would kick the Iranian agents out, making the southern border and homeland more secure. Sure it would. Because that the logic there is just insane, because our homeland security would have it easier with a U.S. puppet dictator in charge in Venezuela. No, they would just control the flow of drugs more tightly if there were any drugs that were coming up. But this is all just narrative so that they can justify bombing to steal the oil. The Atlantic Council think tank has even claimed that Lebanese Hezbollah has helped to turn Venezuela into a hub for the convergence of transnational organized crime and international terrorism. This is the if you're not with us, you're against us. In fact, some of the same issue brief that was published back on October 7th, 2020, entitled The Maduro-Hezbollah Nexus, How Iran-Backed Networks Prop Up the Venezuelan Regime, that came straight out of CIA headquarters in Langley, right out of somebody's asshole. You see the think tank use the term narco-terrorism. That's probably the first documented use of it. The Atlantic Council blames Israel's enemies for this, allegedly setting up a narco-terrorism conspiracy that involved the dissidents of the FARC, drug cartels in Mexico, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Syria, and the Lebanese terrorist group Hezbollah. And a partridge in a pear tree with the Backstreet Boys and an appearance by Will Ferrell at the end, dressed as George W. Bush. Are you fucking kidding me? That's the Atlantic Council. They're out of their minds. such an obsessive focus on this fact-free conspiracy theory that literally is a conspiracy theory because it has no facts and it's just speculation, which points a finger at a who's who of Israel's enemies. Recently roping in Hamas also is not by accident, nor is the pledge of allegiance to Israel by the Venezuelan opposition. While it is clear that Venezuela is allied with Iran and collaborates with it as a means of navigating the world under crushing U.S. sanctions, something they have in common, these conspiracy theories presented by pro-Israel think tanks, Israel lobby-sponsored politicians, and Israeli-aligned media outlets are about as serious as the claims that led to the Iraq War, in terms of the evidence to back them up. But we all see how that turned out. Another motivating factor in Israel's desire to see the Venezuelan state toppled is the emergence of what is now being called the Isaac Accords. So you had the Abraham Accords. Now you've got the Isaac Accords. Okay? They're going into this biblical historical nonsense. This initiative was announced publicly by Argentine President Javier Milei late last month. Now remember that Milei is far distant cousins with Benjamin Milikowski. Milikowski, yes, they are related. What a weird coincidence that is, that he rose to be president of Argentina and then drove their entire economy into the ground within a year and then lost power, failing to rope more major Arab and Muslim nations into the Trump administration's so-called Abraham Accords. The Israeli government is now setting its sights on Latin America. The Isaac Accords demonstrate an active push from Israel to expand its influence in the Western Hemisphere. Disgusting. Left-wing movements and governments in Latin America have historically stood with the Palestinian cause, a legacy of unified resistance to imperialism that lasts until this day. If Venezuela's government is toppled, it's predicted that there will be a domino-style effect, knocking out other left-wing governments in the region, or at least the U.S. will move on to the next targets, which means both Cuba and Nicaragua will be in the firing line. In order for Tel Aviv to prove successful in its Isaac Accords mission, it needs U.S.-funded parties to win elections, and for Washington to carry out regime change operations. I put the win in quotes, in air quotes, for those who can't, but carry out regime change operations across the region. I wonder how they're going to do that. Maybe with CIA and NED or State Department, which they now brought back in-house. The only country that appears immune to this strategy for now is Brazil under Lula, because Lula's also playing ball already to a point. Everywhere else, including Colombia, the Israelis have the perfect man in office. No, not Colombia, to pursue this strategy to its bitter end. Take Marco Rubio, who's not only the recipient of at least over $1 million in Israel lobby funds, but has a personal animus toward the Cuban leadership as a member of that nation's broadly pro-regime change diaspora. Rubio understands full well that regime change in Caracas leads to toppling the government in Havana. I'm sure Snowhimbo would just be thrilled to hear about that. While Israel is not the sole driver of the U.S. Trump administration's regime change agenda in Venezuela, it is undeniable that it's a factor, and it will certainly benefit from the outcome. They're all on board with it because they all benefit from it equally. Again, support Robert Inlakesh, support Palestine Chronicle as well. They've been under attack. We did a story earlier this year about Ramzi Baroud and him being under attack, and them trying to have some of his articles censored and one of his speaking engagements canceled. But yeah, Robert Inlakesh, Indie Media Award honoree, class of, I think, 2023, maybe 24, for top journalist, man. He's really good. I like Robert. And that concludes, thankfully, for tonight, the Fuck Israel, Free Palestine segment. Now, let me tell you, last night, somebody actually made me think, because I have been doing this all as fuck Israel. Because this is mostly about what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians. But I really should put more focus, on Free Palestine. So Free Palestine. Right. And then, Hemkar is putting scripture up. The Hebrew word is harem. Yes, thank you, Hemkar, over on Rumble. All right. Scented Bloom's talking about headphones. My headphones just turned off on me again. I just got new headphones today, too. I got the HyperX, and I'm not thrilled, honestly, or impressed with them compared to the word I had, which I had Corsairs before. And it's basically the same thing, but it's already turned off on me 3 times in this hour and change, so that's not good. For those who didn't see it on Sunday night, the Scented Bloom joined Snow Himbo on ProPilled, so go check that out. I feel a drink coming on after this buzzkill. Boats or no boats? There's no boats tonight. Boats is moved to Sunday night, so we're just going to be doing the news, and then we're going to actually have to we're going to go home and go do our thing. Now, we talked a little bit about Venezuela and how they're being influenced and Israel's influence on Venezuela. There was another thing that had happened, and I think we actually even tried to report on this, or we did report on this, that there was a pro-coup Venezuela. There was a coup attempted to try to unseat Maduro. So these pro-coup Venezuelan soldiers who fled to the U.S., ironic, are now locked up in an ICE detention facility. This comes to us again from Indie Media Award honoree Alan McLeod from Indie Media Award honoree Mintpress News. The Venezuelan soldiers who participated in the U.S.-backed coup attempt in April of this year and subsequently fled to the U.S. have been incarcerated in ICE detention camps ever since. Ironic. Telemundo, a subsidiary of NBC Universal, secured an interview with Major Hugo Parra, the highest ranking of the handful of soldiers who answered self-declared President Juan Guaido's call to overthrow the government of Nicolas Maduro. After the coup ended in spectacular failure, Parra revealed that he fled the country, ending up in the U.S. on April 11th. When was this? Why do I have a feeling that this was from 2019? Where's the date on this? I don't want to be reporting misinformation. This was from 2019. Oh, crap. Look at that. So that's interesting that they were locked up. I don't know where they are now, but these are the guys that hung out with Juan Guaido. Look at that. All right. So they were detained and thrown into an ICE detention facility. Oh, my God. Could you imagine now if they were thrown in? Maybe they'd be sent to CCOT. Anyway. Oh, look at that. The Wynn Correctional Facility in Louisiana. That name sounds familiar. That's where they sent Mahmoud Khalil. And I think Ramesia Ozturk at one point, too. One of the worst ICE detention facilities in the country. Not new. Again, already existed under the first Trump administration. Okay, well, that kind of throws a little bit of a curveball. I didn't realize that I was actually bringing in a 6-year-old article here. But I did want to bring this for another reason, which is because Mintpress News is in trouble. All right. First of all, Stop the Hate UK, which is a shadowy Israel-aligned group, is targeting Mintpress News staff and anti-genocide organizers. So what happened here? In October, Mintpress graphic designer and field photographer Ibrahim Abdul Assad opened his door to find Patrick Sauer of the Daily Telegraph demanding answers. A prolific writer who's penned 28 pro-Israel articles in the past 2 months alone, Sauer asked the British Palestinian journalist to respond to pro-Israel pressure group Stop the Hate UK's campaign for him to be prosecuted for anti-Semitic hate crimes. Abdul Assad's crime was attending an October 2024 demonstration in London protesting an event featuring former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert speaking on the future of Gaza, a case that the Metropolitan Police have already looked into and dismissed. Sauer has previous connections to Stop the Hate UK, a 2024 Daily Telegraph article framing pro-Palestinian marchers as racists, for instance, appears to have been based largely on intelligence gathered by Stop the Hate UK and features multiple images of protesters taken without their knowledge. But who are Stop the Hate UK? Let's find out. And where did they come from? Mintpress explores this group's rise, its agenda, and its scandalously close links to both the British and Israeli governments. Nah. Stop the Hate UK was founded in early 2024 at the height of the Israeli attack on Gaza in order to stymie and oppose the growing wave of support for Palestinian liberation across Britain. The group has attempted to equate support for human rights with terrorism. As their official Twitter bio reads, quote, "We stand in opposition to the hate marches that have swamped our country since the October 7th massacre. We shall not be cowed. Terrorist supporters off our streets." So you're going to get the Israel supporters off? The organization has repeatedly pressured the British government to ban demonstrations and condemn the police for their insufficient vigor in suppressing the movement. They're arresting grandmothers and blind, disabled, protesters. Although it states that it is a nonprofit organization, Mintpress could find no registration of the group within the Charity Commission for England and Wales. The organization's website describes that it was founded in response to the repeated failures of the Metropolitan Police to address anti-Semitic incidents and Palestinian solidarity campaign marches. I think I just saw them all wet their pants while they released that statement. This will be news to many in the UK, where police have arrested over 2,300 people under the Terrorism Act of 2000 for peacefully opposing the designation of activist group Palestine Action as a terrorist entity, putting it on a par with the likes of ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra. So aggressive has British authorities' repression of free speech been that it was officially rebuked by Amnesty International as a grave breach of human rights. Fuck London. Stop the Hate UK organizes their own demonstrations. However, they've not been successful in attracting mass participation. I wonder why. Unlike pro-Palestine marches that can draw in as many as 1 million Britons, and we've seen those pictures of people across London, across those bridges, an image posted by Stop the Hate UK of their recent protest in Brighton shows fewer than 40 attendees. That's even less than people that were showing up to Assange rallies. And we all noted that it was shamefully and woefully insufficient how many people had shown up to those. Even fewer people are showing up to support Israel in this nonsense. They have, however, had more success disrupting solidarity events, filming or harassing protesters, and pushing for their prosecution. Lawfare. In this role, the Canary notes, they serve as an unofficial police informant, almost like Beitar US here. Stop the Hate organization also sells merch from their website. Among its most popular items are t-shirts and hoodies emblazoned with the word Zionist in all caps. While trying to expose the identities of pro-Palestine marchers, aka doxing, Stop the Hate UK appears to try to keep their own identity a secret. There's no information about their key members on their own website, only multiple egregious typos. For example, their About Us section offers little about their background, except that their organization is, quote, a call to action for a world without racism or anti-Semitism. So you're not going to persecute the Palestinians because Palestinians are Semites. Every voice counts in rejecting intolerance and fostering and understanding who we are. Again, intolerance for murdering unarmed babies with British and U.S. bombs. Nevertheless, pro-Israel outlet Jewish News identified two Israelis, Itai Galmudi and Yoshi Davis, as among the founders. Born in Rishon LeZion and raised in Reut near Modin, Galmudi lived in the UK between 2004 and 2008, returning to Israel to study at university and serve in the IDF. Because he was 18, what would be my guess? He participated in Operation Protective Edge, Israel's 2014 bombardment of Gaza, wherein the IDF is widely accused of carrying out serious war crimes. Of course they did, including deliberately targeting civilians. Where have I heard that before? Images from Galmudi's social media show him proudly in uniform, serving in what appears to be a tank brigade. Okay. The British government formally declared Israel for its action, formally condemned Israel for its actions. Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg describing them as collective punishment of a civilian population. Wonder why they don't do that now. Despite this, Galmudi himself was able to move back to London immediately after Operation Protective Edge and works in the pub industry, where he proudly notes that he refuses to serve anyone wearing Palestinian clothing. So wait, he's discriminating and being racist, but they're trying to prevent racism and anti-Semitic discrimination? Huh? Okay. In 2024, he co-founded Stop the Hate UK, a group that has gained plaudits from the Israeli government itself. Earlier this year, the ambassador to the UK recorded a video wishing Galmudi a special happy birthday, stating that your great activity for the last 12 months means so much to the state of Israel. So that's either a Mossad agent or a Sayanim. It is concerning that a former Israeli soldier who represented a military which is being investigated for genocide, responsible for killing 150 members of my family, is part of an organization targeting me and other British citizens in the UK calling for a free Palestine, Abdullah Saad told Mintpress. I don't blame him. Like Galmudi, Yoshi Davis is also from Israel. Her Facebook profile, identifying her as from Kiryat Motzkin, near Haifa, describing herself as a passionate adherent of Zionism, whatever the fuck that means. Davis first came into public attention in 2023 when she and three other pro-Israel activists disrupted Roger Waters' London show. Of course, Roger Waters is a high-profile supporter of progressive causes, including Palestinian statehood and freeing Julian Assange. Roger is one of the best we've got on our side. Davis shouted at Waters, unfurling an Israeli flag and calling his views disgusting. No, what's disgusting is how Israel is murdering Palestinian children. The incident was well covered in the British press, who appeared keen to undermine Waters' message. Of course they are. Davis has long promoted Israeli causes. In 2019, for instance, she worked with Israeli organization My Truth, to bring a squad of IDF soldiers to Britain to visit the Houses of Parliament to carry out a series of educational lectures as baristas, promoting Israel and its military as benevolent forces. Oh my God. Benevolent. What a fucking cunt. Israeli charity website Israel Gives describes My Truth, again, as an educational organization that's comprised of IDF reservists that educate about the IDF operations and the moral standards it holds. Remember, most immoral army in the world, adding that, quote, my truth reservists speak up openly and with a first-hand perspective about their army experiences in response to those who attempt to slander Israeli soldiers in the name of so-called full disclosure. You mean that they indiscriminately murder Palestinian babies, and many of them have been videotaped and videotape each other putting on the clothes of the Palestinian women whose houses they raid? And like Galmudi again, Davis's activism earned her official praise from Israeli government officials. I'm seeing a pattern here. In 2019, former Shin Bet official and then Minister of Justice Amir Ohana recorded a video expressing his deep gratitude, stating, quote, I want to tell Yoshi Davis and the My Truth organization, thank you for providing justice. Thank you for providing truth to the world. And thank you for everything you're doing for the state of Israel and the people of Israel. Thank you. And then he proceeded to blubber in tears all over the TV. Ever the victim. Davis recently met with Israeli President, another war criminal, Isaac Herzog, and both she and Galmudi attended an official event at the Israeli embassy in London last month. Earlier this year, the pair also traveled to Israel and the Golan Heights, Syrian territory illegally occupied by Israel, where they liaised with and took photos with IDF murderers and in front of a tank. On top of this, the choice to name a pro-Israel advocacy group Stop the Hate UK clearly attempts to equate support for Palestine and opposition to genocide with anti-Semitism. Yet, it's also caused significant confusion as already a well-known and respected charity, Stop Hate UK or SHUK, already exists. So they bastardized that name, applied it to the most genocidal regime in the world right now, and then projected to stop the hate against their murdering babies. SHUK was established in the wake of the Stephen Lawrence affair. What happened? Stephen Lawrence was a black British teenager murdered in London in a racially motivated killing in 1993. The attack and the subsequent inadequate response from the Metro Police made Lawrence a cause célèbre, the George Floyd of his day. An official inquiry found that the police force was institutionally racist. Yeah, no surprise, and needed to be radically reformed. They never have been. Since 1995, SHUK has carried out vital work challenging hatred and intolerance. Lawrence's mother serves as its patron. Now, the pro-Israel group Stop the Hate UK is frequently misidentified as the more legitimate body, including in Sauer's aforementioned Daily Telegraph article, where it attributes the intelligence provided to SHUK. They would never have done that to a pro-Palestine protester. It is eminently possible that this sort of confusion was deliberate, and Stop the Hate UK is trying to bask in the legitimacy of an established anti-racist charity. Mintpress contacted SHUK for this investigation, but didn't receive a response. Right. Gaza and the rise of Stop the Hate UK provokes a number of important questions. How is it that a pro-Israel pressure group co-founded by two Israeli citizens can have such an outsized effect on British public life? How can a former member of an army carrying out a massacre put out such successful pressure on UK authorities to arrest journalists exposing the IDF's crimes? And finally, who gets to decide who is and who is not a terrorist? British citizens or pressure groups allied to a foreign nation carrying out a genocide? Mintpress is under assault. And because of that Stop Hate UK organization, I believe, and they may be connected or not, but Manar Adley, who is the founder of Mintpress News, editor-in-chief, put out a tweet yesterday. Please help me demand that Indiegogo give us our $50,000 payout for our Mintpress fundraiser. They did a fall fundraiser. They raised $50,000. She says, I've used their platform for nearly a decade, but I believe that their refusal is part of a coordinated campaign against us. We recently also were banned from PayPal and GoFundMe. So basically, the Israel lobby is coming after Mintpress's potential ways to be funded and stop it from operating. And here is the letter that was put out by Mintpress earlier today, or yesterday. Urgent, Mintpress is being financially censored by Indiegogo, who's refusing to provide us with our $50,000 payout for our fundraiser. Dear supporters, Indiegogo has canceled our fundraising campaign and will not provide us with our $51,000 payout that we raised through the fundraising platform for our campaign, Help Keep Mintpress Alive. The reason? Our project did not meet their guidelines. This is an unacceptable reasoning that we were provided with only today, nearly 3 months after our campaign ended in October. Menar's been trying to get their payout from Indiegogo since the campaign ended. In addition, Mintpress has used Indiegogo to raise funds to support their independent journalism projects for nearly a decade. Indiegogo did say that all donations would be refunded back to donors, but why now? We don't know for sure. However, we suspect this is part of a coordinated financial attack against Mintpress, again, as we were recently informed that we were banned from GoFundMe and PayPal for our journalism that exposes the architects of the forever war machine, specifically Israel. In the last year alone, Mintpress News has exposed a network of Israeli spies from Unit 8200 working within big tech and media, including at Apple. We covered that. Mintpress's independent investigative journalism has been at the forefront of exposing the architects of the U.S. forever war machine and Zionist influence over our political system and national security state. We believe that this is a coordinated attack against dissenting journalism that holds the military elite accountable that keep endless wars possible. Mintpress will not back down, and we ask that you stand with us. Mintpress, like INN, is 100% reader supported, and we are still at risk of shutting down due to being financially targeted unless we meet our fundraising goals. We now need your support more than ever. We thank you for standing with us to support our 14-year-long legacy of providing independent watchdog journalism and helping us push back against this censorship. We're organizing and planning the steps we need to take against Indiegogo. In the meantime, we hope you'll help us raise awareness against the sanctions regime that's targeting its own citizens and our protected right of journalism. Now, the fact that this guy is being targeted as allied with some kind of a hate speech thing, that can't be a coincidence. So somebody asks, you can now support us directly on our website, and the link to donate to Mintpress News, it's mintpressnews.com/donations. I will drop that in all the chats for the live streams, and it will be in the descriptions afterwards. But fuck Israel, again, for going after independent journalism. I understand why. They'll shut down anyone that exposes their nonsense, and Mintpress has been among the strongest in doing so. There, where Whitney Webb published a lot of stuff about Epstein. It's where Alan McLeod publishes. Kit Clarenberg occasionally publishes there. Low Key is over there. It's hard hitting. It's Jessica Buxbaum also publishes over there. I'm a big fan of Mintpress. We had a thing with them once where they overlaid our logo with theirs and an RFK thing with Shmuley, but other than that, they are just, man, there are not very many good outlets out there, independent anymore, that I can rely on, and you could trust that what they're saying is accurate, that it comes with receipts, and they're not going to push nonsense and propaganda. So support them, support independent media, and support media like INN. We showcase and amplify independence here. If you like shows like this, the ways you can support INN is using Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, patreon.com/Indie News Network. Over at our website, IndieNewsNow.com, there's a section to keep the media free. You can tip to the Stripe link there.
Who are these people?
Or you can subscribe monthly at INN Newsletter today, INN Newsletter, or at IndieMediaToday.com. And thank you to Oz the Boomer, $5. Thank you, brother. Oh, I see it there. It's stuck. It did show up. I don't know why it did that over there, but it shouldn't have. Anyway, yeah, $5 from Oz the Boomer. Where's the oh, I turned off Ninja Chat? Why? Turn that on. There it is. $5 from Oz the Boomer. Thank you. Again, all these people are on our wall of fame. All these people have supported us with a tip over the last 4.5 years, and we love you for it. Thank you so much, really. Okay. What have I got left? How much? I've got... This is an interesting one, and I threw this in at the last minute. This is an audible. I've been following this guy on Twitter and now Substack for a little while. Sir Escador, the Hopium Slayer. I like a lot of what he says. I disagree with some of it. I agree with most of it, honestly. And he's been really good at exposing Israel stuff and also at exposing QAnon psyops and laughing at at Trumpers and MAGA guys that still haven't figured out that he was playing them the whole time. All right. So this is something that I saw this morning, and I'm like, ooh, this is actually really good. He put this out that they fill your head with all of this stuff, some hope, some despair, of course, little blood, microchipping you with surveillance and Israel and the church, a lot of guns, of course, authority, race, gender, religion, fear, one event, many spells. What are we talking about here? Is how to recognize a psyop. And I brought this because we talk a lot about psyops on this show, but we don't really educate people as to necessarily how to tune in and to spot one from the beginning and to identify it. Now, I think more people are getting better at this. I think people who saw what happened at Bondi Beach, for example, this weekend, unfortunately, people lost their lives, but a psyop doesn't necessarily mean that nobody gets hurt. A psyop specifically does certain things. Number one, you know that you're looking at a psyop when everyone walks away thinking that they've won. The Zionists certainly think that it helped their narrative. Pro-Palestine people, you know, the idea that Israelis are shooting now, you know, I don't know how that helps necessarily, but nobody saw the event. Very few people actually saw it. But we do have it on tape. Everybody saw their programming reflected back at them. Some saw Muslims orchestrating hate crimes and nothing else. Some saw proof that women shouldn't be cops. Didn't that happen during the Trump thing too? Some saw a crusade for stricter gun laws. Some saw a mandate for immigration reform and mass deportations. It's whatever you want it to be. Some saw perfect pro-Israel media professionals crying on cue in HD. Some saw a fresh excuse to wrap Jews in Israel in another layer of legal bubble wrap. Some saw a pretext to invite Mossad into the investigation like it's a guest star cameo, as if it didn't orchestrate something having to do with it, maybe allegedly. Some saw Israel's fingerprints all over the script. Thank you, I did. Some saw crisis actors, green screen theater, and AI slop. We certainly saw that all over Twitter and Substack. Some saw a glossy new sales pitch for more surveillance tech and predictive policing, and on and on and on. One event, 10 preloaded storylines Every audience segment gets its own custom spell. Race, gender, religion, fear, all wrapped into a single mass trauma worldwide broadcast. And of course, it's delivered in the same hope, despair, shock, trauma cycle every time. First we get shock, then we get outrage, then we have confusion, then we offer the solutions. That cocktail isn't accidental. It's the exact mix needed to erode your mind's natural defenses against control. What are they talking about? Trauma is the accelerant. Hope is the bait. Despair is the cage that keeps you imprisoned. This is how you don't just watch a psyop, you live inside it. You start searching across all of social media for updates or things that will counter the narrative that you've been told or to prove the thing that you're convinced is happening. Think about Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk, and Candace Owens right now. What's going on? Like it's a narrative. It's a psyop. It's a distraction. Spot this stuff. All right. Here's why he said that's. Meet Arsen Ostrovsky. Again, this is not just some guy at Bondi. Who is he? And I want to talk Bondi. Sorry. I want to talk about Bondi Beach probably next time and break this down a little more. You know, I talked about one of the things in independent media that we have the luxury of is to sit back and get it right. We don't have to be reactionary and have that hot take. We're not getting the clicks. That's not what I do this for, at least. I know there are some that rush to do that and think that it's just fine, but what you end up doing is either falling for or pushing a lot of propaganda narrative or getting it wrong just because you wanted to have something out there and have some kind of response. All right? Because this guy was the subject of a whole lot of psyops. This guy with the bloody head. First of all, as someone who was a nurse, someone posted, before I bandage a wound like that, I'll clean the area first to make sure there's no further injury. They don't just fucking bandage it up like he did. It looked like a television guy. All right. But who is this guy exactly? Well, he's the CEO of the International Legal Forum, an Israel-based lawfare shop coordinating lawyers worldwide to crush any delegitimization of Israel. He's also a senior figure at the Misgav Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy, a hardline security and policy think tank. He spent years operating out of Israel, then suddenly moves back to Australia, and within weeks becomes the bloodied poster boy of the Bondi shooting, instantly framed as evidence of an explosion of anti-Semitism and the narrative about globalizing the Intifada. That's something, again, I want to gather all of this stuff together and present to you. Here's what they tried to psyop everybody with. This is how narrative management works. Professional advocates for a foreign state are presented as neutral victims, then blasted across social media to steer public emotion and policy. If you doubt how these networks and intel circles exploit, and in some cases, stage manage shooting incidents, this is your case study. This whole thing stinks of theater. And the script is always the same. Use the spectacle to ram through security policy, new speech and anti-Semitism laws, more money for Israel, and fresh rivers of cash to private pro-Israel NGOs in the name of community safety, even though it makes nobody safer. He's not just a witness, he's part of the apparatus. Now, again, I'm not really sure about the story with the shooter itself. One of the shooters, Navid Akram, a.k.a. maybe allegedly David Cohen, alleges to have ties with ISIS, which is the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. That's what ISIS actually stands for. His father was Saeed Akram, was the second shooter, and they're from Pakistan. The shooter was born in Australia. The guy who stopped him was born and raised in Syria, then immigrated to Australia. The shooter was born in Australia. The guy who stopped him was born and raised in Syria, then immigrated. Like we said, this tangle mess is an incompetence. It's the design. The same people staging the false flag are the ones leaking blurry clips, bad timelines, and fake leads. They manufacture the chaos, then herd everyone into rage and confusion on cue. While you're busy fighting over what's real, the only thing that's real is this. The bill that was the whole point of the operation is already written, signed, and drying in ink. And that is the anti-Semitism bill that I believe got signed in Australia. I just thought that was interesting to talk a little bit about narratives and psyops and propaganda and how that pushes out. Again, support independent media. Sir Escanor is certainly funded by nobody but his viewers, fans, and supporters. And that's the kind of media we like to support, even if we disagree with what they say sometimes. But these people actually have supported INN, so we love them and deeply appreciate them. The ways to join them would be to use Cash App, $ Indie News Network is our handle over there. ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Over at paypal.me/Indie News Network. We've got patreon.com/Indie News Network. We've got 10 paid subscribers over there too. Thank you so much to everyone who supports over there. Our website at IndieNewsNow.com, there is a section to keep the media free. You can click there and leave a tip for INN. And then we've got INN Newsletter and IndieMediaToday.com over at Substack. You can subscribe monthly or annually at either one of those places. And thank you for everyone on that board that already does so. And the people that are highlighted in yellow, by the way, are people that have given extra amounts and repeatedly over time and have really gone out of their way to support our network, and we deeply appreciate them. So thank you, really. Okay, I've got a lightning round, and then we're going to get to the GoFundMes, and we can get out of here. First story in the lightning round. Oh, let me share my screen so you can see what I see. Do you see what I see? Wait, what's going on over there? D to T and Ghost Starter having a conversation over there. Snag a seat at Gyno Row before Hempy takes them all. Oh, gross, dude. I don't know what's going on over there. Happy Hempy turducken for Christmas. Dude, I don't know what's going on. Oh, you might want to go over there and put D to T in line. Where are the strippers? I don't know, bro. What's going on over at Rumble? What's going on over at Rumble? All right, guys, get it together. All right. Lightning round. Let's start with SheerPost, Indie Media Award honoree. Compound interest is devouring the federal budget. And again, I'm not going to read this whole article. This was by Ellen Brown. All right, this is an original article for SheerPost that she wrote. She's also written over at Truth Out and Byline at other places. But this chart is alarming because what she says is that interest is now the fastest growing line item in the entire federal budget. Remember that $38 trillion federal debt? All right. The government paid $970 billion in net interest in financial year 2025, which is more than the entire Pentagon budget and rapidly closing in on Social Security. That's a problem, a massive problem, because that interest will reach nearly $1.8 trillion within a decade and will cost taxpayers $13.8 trillion over that decade. That's roughly what Social Security is going to pay out over that same period. We are at an unsustainable pace. Somebody is going to call in all that debt. Next year, we hit $1 trillion in interest alone. Again, more than our military budget. Critics accuse the U.S. of printing dollars and exporting inflation, but it's not the government that's printing these dollars. Most of the money supply in modern economies consists of deposits created by private banks when they make loans. This is really interesting. Again, I'm not going to read this whole article. It's really long, but it's fascinating. And it's not normally what I would talk about on this show, but I did want to bring it, and I'll link it in the Substack afterwards and in the description for the lightning round segment. So you'll be able to link and read the whole article itself. Go check that out. Again, support SheerPost. Next, we got Dissent in Bloom wrote an article recently that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. This is about the Heritage Foundation and their flip from now that 2025 is already being implemented. What now? They're not just sitting on their hands and doing nothing. She looked into exactly what their plan is, and it may frighten you. You may even want to write this information off as conspiracy, but I want to remind you that it wasn't long ago that we were writing off Project 2025 as conspiracy, and Trump was even denying that he was involved. All right, but she makes all the links here between Agenda 47 and the Heritage Foundation's plan, Project 2025. But now there's a new one that they released in March called Restoring America's Promise. Like, she had to go digging on their website to find this. This wasn't advertised or promoted, but it's what they're certainly doing. All right. And the ongoing coup of the Heritage Foundation, right, that they have infiltrated and are in a lot of top spots within the administration, but that their policy priorities are to counter the CCP, to eliminate regulation, inflation, and spending. All right, and we're going to, if you keep going down here, there's other, make this a little smaller so I can get the chapter markers. All right. Then we've got America brought to you by the Heritage Foundation, right? At least 31 known heritage figures currently walk the corridors of federal power under their banner. They answer to no voter and fear no law. This includes but isn't limited to, and again, there's a list: Caroline Levitt, Pam Bondi, Stephen Miller, Russell Vogt. Those are really powerful, influential people within the Trump administration. Oh yeah, Hegseth, Brendan Carr, also Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratfuck, both linked to Heritage, now overseeing U.S. intelligence. Go check out this article. It's scary, but I think that it's important for people to understand what we're dealing with and what their plan is, and to know. And she actually advises at the end. Let me go to that. Actually, there was one other thing I wanted to point out. She actually has a photo in here of, funny enough, Erica Kirk and Netanyahu's son. Let me go back down. Where is it? Turning point. Here it is. Look at that. That was before she got married. Him. Okay. So then she's talking about giving Charlie Kirk the Horst Wessel treatment. We talked about that. We read that article. Here's what she says. This isn't just politics. It's not just policy differences or typical right versus left arguments. What the Heritage Foundation is doing through Project 26 is a carefully crafted plan to reshape the entire country from the inside out. It's a slow motion coup, and most people don't even realize it's happening. It's like the frog in the boiling pot of water. They're using fear, dark money, and the power of government to lock in their control, rewriting laws, filling agencies with loyalists, and turning surveillance and propaganda into tools of enforcement. They've learned how to make it all look legal, even patriotic. But what it really is a full-blown authoritarian power grab hidden in plain sight. She says she keeps asking herself, is she already on the list? She speaks up. She criticizes the government. She supports immigrant rights, LGBTQ rights, and she doesn't stay silent about police violence. We reject corporate greed and believe in people over profit. We believe in bodily autonomy and in telling the truth. When she reads how they define domestic extremism, she sees anyone who isn't a GOP loyalist, including her and me. And if you're reading this and nodding along, maybe you're on that list too. That's the point. They want us afraid. They want us silent. But we're not going anywhere. Never comply in advance with fascism. Follow her at dissentandbloom.substack.com for more. Part 2. This is far from over. So that's part 2. Then, censorship. Again, this could have easily been in the Fuck Israel segment because we know why. They have deleted, YouTube has deleted all of David Rovics' articles. YouTube, aka the biggest platform on earth, has deleted all of my albums. It seems abundantly obvious to me that everyone who believes in free expression, whether side of various political equations they may be on, should be more concerned about what YouTube just did. It could happen to him because of his allegedly controversial political viewpoints. It could happen to you because of yours. But in order for anyone to be concerned, first they have to understand what it is that exactly did happen, so he'll try to explain it as succinctly as possible. So read this article, understand what happened, and again, copyright claims. Again, this has to do with copyright. I'm an independent, all right, putting out self-release recordings. I've been doing this since before the internet became widely used. Before the invention of MP3s, I used to put it on CDs or tapes. I've never had anything remotely approaching a hit or what they would call a commercial success. But among musicians who have had their music up for streaming, I'm easily in the top 10% of most streamed artists, usually in the top 5. Right? My songs are streamed millions of times a year on YouTube, millions of times on Spotify, less on the other platforms, because there really are only 2 main platforms in the world outside of China. So again, he explains this entire thing and how you can help, which is to petition Google. But yeah, this is a long article, so read David's piece on this. He also did a 20-minute interview with Margaret Flowers over at Popular Resistance. The podcast is called Clearing the Fog. So listen to that there. I also wanted to make mention real quick before we get out of here, Richard Medhurst, Indie Media Award honoree. All right. He made a great announcement the other day that the UK dropped terrorism charges against him. He has been under investigation since last August, I believe. We've been covering that since the day that he announced that he was arrested and taken into custody. He was boarding a flight somewhere. They then confiscated his devices. He allegedly would not unlock his graphene operating system phone. And that's what's going on. So I want to play this video of Richard's. It's 4 minutes. We can listen to this together.
My name is Richard Medhurst. Last year, I became the first journalist in Britain to be arrested for my work under the Terrorism Act, Section 12. After being investigated for over a year, the UK have now dropped the case, no charges will be filed, and I am no longer on bail. But the UK authorities only closed it because they decided to pass the buck to Austria, where I'm facing similar persecution for my reporting. So the UK handed all their files, all their intelligence that they have on me, to the Austrians. Their claim is that Austria has quote-unquote primacy. Basically, that's the best excuse that they could come up with to try and save face. And I'll tell you why it makes no sense. First of all, Austria can't have primacy if the UK arrested me first 5 months earlier. Second, these two cases are definitely both ridiculous bullshit, but the claims are different. The UK claims that journalism is terrorism. The Austrians say journalism makes you a member of a terrorist organization. And third, under Section 12, they think they have universal jurisdiction, so they can prosecute you for saying something on the moon or in another country. But they didn't, because they have no case. There was no crime. But the fact they still went out of their way, my government went out of their way to give Austria whatever so-called files they have on me, shows you what vicious little shits they are. These cockroaches are literally blowing people up on a daily basis, and then they have the nerve to call me a terrorist because I'm sitting in a room by myself talking to a camera. I never answered a single question. I went no comment for 2 hours. I never unlocked a single device, even when they offered me journalistic privilege, which I'll explain in another video. I still turned it down to protect my sources, knowing I could face prison just for refusing to unlock my phones. I refused to cooperate with their fascist nonsense, and in the end, they still had to let me go, and they still had to drop the case. I believe the British authorities asked the Austrians to raid me and steal all of my devices precisely because they were unable to get into my graphene phone. Now that the UK has dropped the case, I really hope the Austrians will realize that they've been taken for a ride and sent on a wild goose chase with ridiculous accusations. The fact that this case has been allowed to drag on for almost a year and a half is a crime in and of itself. Keir Starmer's government still haven't addressed the fact that 2 weeks after my arrest, 2 weeks after Richard Barnard was indicted, the Israeli embassy was meeting with the Attorney General's office. Why does the Israeli embassy have access to the police force and the lawyers involved in my case and those of several other dissidents? This is an undeniable conflict of interest. I think that Israel leaned on the UK to go after me, then the UK leaned on Austria, or Israel leaned on both of them. However you slice it, and no matter how you look at it, it's political either way. So one case is dropped, but there's still another one against me in Austria, both of them claiming that journalism is terrorism. If we truly live in a liberal democracy, then it is the journalist's job to police the police. This is why we call journalism the fourth estate. It represents the fourth branch of government that holds the other three to account, that holds power centers accountable for their actions. It is not for them to police, to school, to impede my work. Nevertheless, this news that the UK has dropped the case is still a victory. It's a partial victory. And it's not just a victory for me. This is a victory for all of us, for our freedom of speech, for our free press, for our civil liberties. Thank you to all those who are still donating. It is so critical after they demonetized my channel and stole my equipment and now threatening me with prison. Every contribution counts.
So, a mixed bag there to a point. And I would love to see some kind of a statement from the UK clearing his name. I would have loved to have seen some statement announcing what the charges were or what they were doing, but now there have been, whatever charges there were have been dropped. I would assume that his devices would now be returned. I don't know. That's a good question, but support Richard because he's going to need it. Again, paypal.me/PuppyChulaman, because that's from way back when, from back in the day. Patreon.com/Richard Medhurst. I was Patreon like number 190 something way back in 2020. Again, I've watched this guy for a long time, and I would like to see him unleashed again, to feel free to report and say whatever he wants to say or whatever he feels. But he has been heavily restricted. And I think that Austria is as restrictive, if not more so. And he lives in Austria. So the primary thing and the secondary thing, that's all really interesting. That's all legal wranglings. I don't know how that's going to shake out. Whether he's going to be allowed to go back to reporting freely remains to be seen. So, well wishes to Richard. I'm glad that he's out from at least England's thumb, but let's see what happens when it comes to Austria and his story. Max RJ over at my other YouTube channel, youtube.com/@IndianINN, where that is monetized, and you could leave a super chat, by the way. Peace Dove is wondering how Shanda is doing because of all the rain and flooding in Washington. I have not heard anything. I'm sure Oz, the Boomer, or somebody from out in the Washington area will let us know, but I believe that she's doing all right. She finished her treatment, we know, from her second round of chemo, and she's now heading out to, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Before we do, support independent media, please, if you can. We're solely user-funded. We don't take ad revenue. We don't take anything else other than the money that you guys help us with. And yeah, thank you. So ways to do that: Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, patreon.com/ guess what? Indie News Network. Yeah. IndieNewsNow.com is the name of the show. It's also a website where we have a bunch of, what's going on here? Where we have news aggregated. There we go. Where we have aggregated news, bring in over 100 sources to deliver a 24/7 feed, and also having a co-streaming live embed of any time that INN is live. There's also merch. You can go check out our merch over there, and you can go check out what was the other thing? Keep the network free, right? The Stripe link over at IndieNewsNow.com. And then again, we're live over on Substack at IndieMediaToday.com. I also publish INNNewsletter.com for the network that we're part of. That's INN Indie News Network. That is that's where you can find INN News and Angel in the Afternoon, and we co-stream AM Wake Up 5 days a week, and Pro Wrestling Talk is over on the Ocho, and Nobody Wants to Work Anymore with me, and Snow Himbo is over there. So a lot of stuff going on at Indie News Network. You go to INNNewsletter.com, subscribe free to get the newsletter there at least weekly, and then some of the podcasts also. We live stream over there for the network. We mentioned Shanda earlier. We're going to get to the GoFundMe's real quick, then we'll get out of here. Shanda is battling round 2 of stage 4 cancer. Okay, it started a small cell. It has spread, and she just underwent treatment. She's done with her second round. Again, she's heading over to, where was it? Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle. And she'll actually, I believe, have to spend a couple of nights overnight there. But she'll be getting treatment and going through next round, whatever that is. We love you. We stand with you, Shanda. Again, here is her GoFundMe. And if you're able to, please hook her up with a couple of bucks for the holidays. Remember, Christmas time is coming up. Next, we've got Aspen. Before we get to Aspen, Cowboy Kitty, Anthony Malecki, his sister-in-law, Natalia, was in the process of being deported for not filing paperwork on time. She was going through all the proper steps, but they put her in an ICE detention facility in Ohio. She was stuck there for months and months and months. I don't even know if she's been deported already or if she's still there. I asked Anthony for an update. I did not get one, so I don't know if there's been any update to this story. But the GoFundMe for Natalia here, she could certainly use a couple of bucks. And that's for her daughter and for her living expenses while she fights this case. And you know that gets expensive. So there is the link for that GoFundMe. Finally, we've got Aspen, who is facing decades in prison, possibly. We did a live stream about this at the end of October. Justice for Aspen. Jesse Jett played a concert. I did a one-on-one interviewing them, talking about what happened. She's a victim of being in the wrong car, in the wrong place, with the wrong person at the wrong time, and now she's facing decades in prison for drug trafficking, even though she's not a drug trafficker. So if you can help them with their legal expenses, they hit their first goal of $12,500. They just reached it the other day after Giving Tuesday, but they haven't gotten any since. So again, if you're able to at all, and you have a couple of bucks for the holiday season, it would mean so much to Halo and to Aspen if you would be able to throw them a couple of bucks. Even $5 helps. It really does matter. And I mentioned the website earlier, IndieNewsNow.com. Here it is. Let me give it a refresh again, just to show you that 24/7 new articles are publishing. New videos are being pulled from Rumble channels, and I determine which channels are included. There was an article from Caitlin Johnstone earlier. You've got the Scott Horton Show, antiwar.com. What else have we got here? Dave DeCamp, same thing. Sheer Post, Odyssey channels. So that's Geopolitics and Empire over on Odyssey. Right? All these things free, all 100% free, ad free, keep the news free. You can watch live anytime INN is live. If we got taken off all the platforms, you'd be able to see us here. And again, the merch store, GoStar, thank you for putting the link up on Rumble. I see you. All right, that's the link to our merch. Oh, that's actually the Natalia thing. But I actually saw GoStar. There it is. There's a link to the merch store. Newsshop.itemorder.com. All right, Indie News Shop. Let me put that up real quick. And you get a t-shirt, you get a beanie. I think the beanies are working now. There was a problem. I went to the website and I actually tried to order a beanie for myself. And I noticed that there was no size. So you had to choose one size fits all. Now you can actually add it to your cart. Before we were not able to add it to our cart. So that's good to see. Excellent. So add a beanie to your cart. Pick up an INN beanie for the wintertime. It's freezing out there, $19. Where are you going to find a deal like that? Okay. Also, remember the 12 days of Fuck Israel, which is what we've been doing every night or every day. We're already on day 3. I've been compiling all the clips from How Do We Miss That and this show throughout 2025, 1 month at a time, and putting together a live stream of that compilation. And please watch that. Please share that. Please support that. Remind yourself of all the crap that they pulled this year, because it's remarkable just how much they've actually done. And support independent media because we need it more than ever, fam. I love you all. I'm going to cut out for the night, and we'll see you soon. Have a good night, everyone. No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe?
Is your HyperX Cloud 3 headset randomly shutting off? It's likely due to trigger premature shutdowns. Next, try a simple reset. Hold the power button for 10 seconds. This often resolves minor glitches. A weak or unstable Bluetooth connection can also cause the auto-off feature to falsely trigger, so ensure you have a strong signal. These steps should resolve the issue for most users. If basic troubleshooting fails, update your headset's firmware via the HyperX Ingenuity app on Windows or Mac OS. Firmware updates often include power management bug fixes. The latest version, such as firmware 3.2.1 as of July 2025, specifically addresses unintended shutdowns. In Ingenuity, explore options to customize or even disable the auto sleep function, though note this